This episode of RFK Refugees is brought to you by Pitch Invaders. Pitch Invaders wants to remind you the pitch is for the people. They are the ultimate apparel destination tailored for the soccer community. Use code VAMOS for an exclusive 15% discount on all purchases at pitchinvadersusa.com. That's pitchinvadersusa.com. Welcome in, everyone. RFK Refugees Podcast. Ted here, John here to review another weekend, I guess you could say, of exciting soccer here in the DC area. John, before we get into my friend, how you doing, my friend? Hope you're doing well.
I'm good. Victories of the weekend was fun. We had Easter, like everybody else had. I think I got to go. The reason why we're recording now when we are is that I was at a baseball game yesterday in the rain and clouds, which they lost. That was sort of a given and expected. But what was not expected, and maybe should have been expected, is that of the 9 innings, I spent 4.5 innings in line for food, which is not what you want. It's not what you want when you pay the opening day premium. So I'm going to eventually learn my lesson and stop doing the opening day thing because it's a bit of a nightmare.
Wait for that midweek game when there's no one there.
Literally just tomorrow would have been fine. It was 40-something thousand people. Tomorrow it will be like 18,000 people, which is much better from that perspective. But
maybe they could play it at Audi Field if it's 18,000.
They might could. I actually parked at the Audi Field, which I've never done before, and that was $40. And that's like opening day prices. So if it's less, that might be the move because it's really easy to get in and out from there. Maybe I don't want to share my secret, but that's what I did. What about you? What was your weekend like?
I was going to Richmond. I also then decided it would be fun to drive up to DC to watch a DC game. It was my first supporting live experience where I'm supporting DC. If you know, the last time I was there, I was supporting the Richmond Kickers in the Open Cup game, which sadly will not happen this year for reasons that are dumb and stupid. But it was fun. I went to the game. Had some nice seats. Probably paid a little bit too much, but wanted to sit close to a friend who I was driving up with, and I got close in the seating, and then the person next to him didn't show up, and then there was like a whole row where I was supposed to sit, and I had like a seat 3, but like 1 through like 10 was like completely empty. So it was nice. That was a good experience. Obviously, seeing the win was nice. Did not like the drive back on Sunday was a little rough.
Yeah, no, it's awful, and also the fact that the express lane's going north on the. Were they going north or going south?
Well,
Saturday they were going south.
Well, I think it was.
You came down Sunday.
Yeah. So I came down Saturday night. So traffic wasn't too bad Saturday night. I've got my little special hack that I do from Richmond, which is just to completely ignore I-95 and just take 301 to the end of the green line and then ride the metro in. That is, I still think, the best way. There are other people that disagree, and they're wrong, but that is the best way to get to games.
We provided multiple travel hacks in this episode. I didn't know that's what we're about that now. Where to park, where to drive from.
Yeah, we hope you had a good Easter. Yeah. We hope you had. I didn't want to pause before we get into the games. Obviously, Sunday I believe was also Trans Visibility Day. There are certain people out there who claim to be DC fans that don't want trans people to feel loved. Those people are wrong. They are not people. You are loved. You are seen. We hope you had a good day. Regardless of who you are, we hope you had a good day. And just wanted to get that out there because it's not. I'm not going to bring up who it is. We all know who it is, and those people are unfortunate, and we hope they eventually go away very, very quickly, and are silenced the way that they should be because hate, transphobia, it's not right, and just wanted to get that out there before we get into the games. So
here.
Let's get into it. Let's talk DC United. 1-0 victory over the CF Montreal. Maybe a little bit close. Obviously, I think we're still in kind of the early stages of the year. It's still a little tough to tell who's good, who's bad. storylines, trends are starting to develop. Teams like, now it's becoming almost like, okay, now you need to start. Maybe you've had a month, you've shaken off all the preseason rust. You've got players that are fit; they're 90 minutes fit at this point. They're match fit, they're ready to go. Now's the time where you need to start kind of showing it. Yes, we make a joke about the playoffs not mattering. Every season's a joke, but I still feel like there's a lot of early season momentum you can grab. And you look at last year with St. Louis, they got off to an incredibly hot start. They definitely cooled off as the year went down, but because of that hot start, a lot of teams had to play catch up, and vibes and form do matter in a certain sense in the stretch of the game, and you can put yourself really behind the eight ball. We're seeing it with Seattle right now. So certainly, I think this was a game coming into it where it says, okay, we've played well, but we still only have one win out of, 4 games. I forget how much we played up to this game. That's not something you usually would say. Like, if you had told me that at the beginning of the year, I'd be like, oh man, it's a rough year. It's going to be a rough start to the year. But, you look at the schedule and the results they've gotten have been good. But, now it's time to go out and start putting together results. This is a certainly a well-organized CF Montreal team, but not a great team. Not a team that DC shouldn't go out and beat. And they were going to make it difficult. I kind of predicted this in my season preview. They're a team that likes to sit back, absorb pressure. But DC, to their credit, a tactical shift came out and made it well. I guess I'll start with you because I feel like sometimes I talk a lot, and I want you to have your thoughts on the game.
No, I thought it was actually a very, very exciting match for the not necessarily the neutrals, but just on television. It was sort of back and forth. It was not super cagey. There were lots of opportunities for both. Well, for DC United than for Montreal. But to your point about the narratives, we talked at the beginning of the season about, is this a rebuilding year? What is this year exactly? What are our intentions? What is this roster construction all about? And the fact remains that we still have a large amount of dead cap, or at least non-useful cap, being utilized on this team. And I think that should be taken into account when you think about the performances so far and the results so far. You're playing with your hand behind your back in a lot of ways, with Miller, who's I think 400,000 not playing. Mm-hmm. Martin Rodriguez not really being a factor, being sort of like a last 5 minute in non-impact substitute. Mohana Jazzy now at least finally making the bench, but not playing. That's a lot of money. That's Steve Burnbaum, Russell Canals. Russell Canals is cheap, but just lots of players who are not factoring at all into the club. And they're still sort of trying to, they're going forward. Connor Antley, a USL signing at the last 5 minutes of the offseason, it felt like, before the season started, has made multiple starts, is performing well. I think that's really important to look at. We also talked about the fact that the schedule is about to change for DC United. They play Columbus next, which is a hard chance to get a good result, particularly on the road.
They will have Champions League, so there is some hope there.
So we keep getting a little bit lucky, right? It didn't help it didn't help for Inter Miami, right? Like they came and still slapped us around. But in general, we've gotten the benefit of playing good teams in their worst possible incarnation, at least, and then it's just up to DC to make it happen. But yeah, sitting on 9 points, mid table through 6 games. Not the best, but certainly better than we might have expected with the realities that we just talked around roster construction. And I think, too, this lineup was notable for a couple changes that I think we should get into as we talk about the match. Pirani not starting, I think, is pretty important. We have talked about him frequently so far this season about what is his function, what can we expect out of him as the position he's occupying. Not so much the contract and the transfer fee. That's sort of irrelevant at this point. But just sort of like, this is a player who's starting every minute he's available. He's started every game so far that he's been available, and he has not done much of anything, really. And then it was a question I think a lot of people were saying is, how long of a leash does he have? And then you look at the bench and you understand maybe why he has that leash. There's not a ready-made replacement that doesn't somehow affect other parts of the field. So that's sort of what you've been seeing. But in this game, for the first time, Troy Lesesne put him on the bench to start the game, and maybe coincidentally, not coincidentally, he had a very decent cameo appearance at the end of the second half. He was much more impactful. So I thought that was something I want to call out.
I will say I think him being on the bench was more in service of the tactical change that the team made this game. I think we went on the lineup and I saw the lineup and I was kind of boasting. So this is a 3-5-2. You're going to have Antley playing as sort of a roaming center back. You're going to have Dahomey and Stroud as sort of the wingbacks again. And, maybe the interesting wrinkle is, Teku DiPietro playing as playing as a forward. Is he in the midfield? I think maybe actually it might have been, Herrera would be out on the right wing back. Stroud, I thought maybe might be shifting him more as sort of a number 8 type role or sort of a shuttler between the attack. And, and then obviously you still had Click and Petula there, but he rolled out a 4-3-3. That was a team that was structurally set up to play a 4-3-3. So it's sort of the second kind of tactical shift from the team that we've seen this year. The first was against St. Louis when they were desperate for anybody who had a pulse to play, and they rolled out a 3-5-2. And this is sort of the second wrinkle we've seen. And I think it's worthy to call out because we've talked a lot. I feel like as DC fans, it's been a while since I think we've had a coach that. And I think the last time with the 3-5-2, he gave a lot of credit to Zach Prince, who is his assistant coach. Maybe he's the Nate Shelley, the tactical genius behind the scenes here. Not to overload the Ted Lasso references, but I think we'll give credit to the whole coaching staff. I think that was an impressive shift. I think it flummoxed Montreal a bit. They were not expecting it. And you kind of had Teku DiPietro and Click sort of playing sort of high pressing midfielders. And it did leave, and I'll get to a little bit about maybe some of the things that I didn't like from this game. Did leave Petula kind of exposed a little bit, I thought, in certain moments. But overall, I think right out of the gate, the first moment, which was an offside goal called on Benteke, who just, if he just moved like literally a couple steps, he would have been onside, and maybe that would have been the opening goal. And we would have had a less nerve-wracking type game. But Teku DiPietro pressuring the ball, winning the ball, really effectively, and very nearly opening up the scoring. I thought that whole first half, the team just and really the whole game really dominated the chances, dominated the possession. And then also defensively, Joseph Martinez, other than maybe a little shout, really didn't have much to work with. So overall, it was just a full, pretty impressive performance. Overall, and we'll get to the final third struggles a little bit, but
also, so we'll see sort of what the next game brings. If the rotation, if the formation changes and Pirani is somehow still stranded on the bench, then we'll see. Maybe it was a little bit of both. But I think you're right. Basically, I think you make a good point. We'll see against Columbus. But he just, he did. I don't remember the minute. It's been a little bit of time now, but there was a dribble take on situation with a really smart pass where he got past a player or two, which he has not been doing very well in the middle of the field. And I was like, oh, well, maybe he's like a 30-minute player right now. Maybe not having this 90 minutes of starting the game and being responsible for a lot more tactical adjustments throughout the game is maybe not where he's at right now. And maybe he needs the short term, like, go do this thing. We're down a goal. This is what we need you to do. Go do it. And maybe that's, I don't know. I think he's an important problem to solve for us to be more than mid-table at any point.
Yeah. And I want to call out, I keep banging the drum for Teku DiPietro to be the number 10. I don't think it was like a elite MLS performance, but he had a couple moments. I think there was one moment where he gets the ball behind his back and just lobs this, really sublime pass right into Benteke's feet. And even there was a moment late in the game too, where I thought Benteke had Teku DiPietro sort of cutting inside. And I think if he just lays that ball off, I think DC walk out of this game with a 2-0 victory. So, but
the other thing he did was winning the free kick at the top of the box, literally in a phone booth. Like, I don't really know how he did it. We received the ball in a bad spot underneath his feet with two players on him, and it would have been very easy to concede, but he was able to force a foul without really moving. It was really, really kind of impressive. That's a skill set that not a lot of players have.
Yeah. And we should also give credit. I think Benteke again doesn't get on the score sheet, but is again very, very effective. And I wrote this. If you can check out rfkrefugees.com, you can see some of my more thoughts. Apologies for the delay. It was a very busy weekend. We'll make sure those are up on a more timely matter. But
listen, there aren't enough people writing about DC United, so even if it's a couple days late, they should take it.
It is. I did notice. I think we talked a lot about too. Benteke is doing the winning the ball in the air. There needs to be guys ready for that. And I don't know if it's something they've been working on, but it seemed more effective this time. Like there was certain moments where he wins the ball down and guys are ready for it and they're going to press.
His stats are the most Benteke stats. I just want to run through them really quick. It's pretty great. 1.19 XG. So I still think he's second or third in the league in XG generated. So that's 0.14 XG on target. 2 chances created, 2 shots on target, 2 shots off target, 1 hit woodwork, 3 big chances missed. And then the other thing that's the most Benteke thing is 9 of 11, 82% aerial duels won. So him in a nutshell.
What do we make? Because I think we all agree like Benteke is the best player out there. Yep. I feel like we're falling back into and it's a fair question to ask of him. The final third, and I think that's where this team struggled. They generated good chances, I think, in the first half, and they the Benteke gets the header. It's a great save from I think Sororis. I forget what the keeper's name is. He gets a really
Sirois,
yeah, it might be that. It might be. Who knows if we got the French?
I'm sure we will have 5 corrections in our Twitter mentions in 5 minutes.
I'm sure we will. But I guess the best moment I'd say he had in the first half was I think it was a great cross header, over his shoulder. If the goalkeeper doesn't get a hand to it, that's probably headed for the back of the net. He gets the save. Even if he gets the save, it almost trickles into the back of the net. Maybe would have been a different story, but again, effective play there. And obviously I think the next sort of moment, Stroud had kind of a half chance. But the next moment was the free kick that I can particularly recall, as far as being a good save. So, again, I think this is going to be a game. It's hard for me to be critical too much, I guess, of the final third because, Montreal sat deep. They've been very good at that this year of kind of, frustrating teams and preventing chances. And I think it's almost it's hard to be too critical because, there's just a lot of traffic in there. I will state that, I thought Stroud struggled a little bit. Crosses weren't there. A lot of times he overhit them. So, again, off night for him. Hopefully it doesn't, continue into the next in the next week. Any other thoughts? I want to get maybe into the second half a little bit, but any sort of thoughts on the first half? Any other moments? Anything you noticed?
Not particularly at this point anymore. I think time has eroded a little bit of my accuracy on the first half. But I do think, just to your point about utilizing Benteke to the best, I mean, we still haven't replaced Taxi, right? I mean, Ted is filling that role in some way, but like having a forward that doesn't need a lot of chances, like a starved forward that is able to sort of, bottom feed like a like a fish that can take the crumbs. Still finding a way to get a player like that paired with him because he's, he can win the ball down. He needs a lot. He needs a volume of chances to get an opportunity. Hit the post, was offside, so he's in and around. But I do think it would be interesting to have a non-Dahomey, non-Ted Kutupietro, who is more of a mix. Like he's like kind of a tweener, right? Having just another forward out there and see what that looks like. But that doesn't exist in the roster really.
Yeah, and we'll see if Ted can develop into that. I think he shows a lot of promise in that. I think this game maybe wasn't a fair game to assess him based on that because he was playing deeper in the midfield. So I think that impacted him. It impacted a lot of players. Herrera, I thought, excellent game. Obviously has the goal line save in the second half, but really wasn't able to impact the game offensively like we've seen him able to do. So I think the formational shift had some impacts, but I think overall when you go out there, you make a formation shift and you dominate the play the way you did. That means it was certainly a good decision from the coaching staff on that front. let's talk. I want to touch a little bit on the second half. I did think, the frustration kind of settled in a little bit for this team. I would say from about minute 60 to minute 80, there were, real kind of crosses, but I think they started to get a little bit. There was a little, the patience wasn't there. And this is what I've talked about. This is a pressing team. This is a team that's going to press to try to win the ball. But they're also not a team. I think we think of pressing teams. We think like win the ball quickly, try to go quickly and score goals. And I think that's certainly something that, if it's on and they see it and they see the odd man opportunities, they're going to take it and they're going to go quickly and they're going to try to score. They're going to utilize Herrera. They're going to utilize, Dahome. They're going to utilize their speed a little bit to try to make that happen. But it's also not a team that I feel like has to move quickly. If it's not there, they're going to cycle it. They're going to take their time. They're going to, push the ball around and try to develop opportunities. And I think they've shown they can still be a very effective team when they do that. And, I think this time the frustration was settling in. Everybody was kind of on edge. They dominated. And I feel like they were kind of rushing things a little bit. There were a couple passes from, I think, Ted had one moment where he kind of rushed the pass. And, also Click, I think, rushed a couple passes as well that sort of turned into odd man opportunities the other way for Montreal. And I think it's something maybe to keep in mind if you're Troy Lesesne. You say, hey, what led up to the goal, I think, is they finally, someone, either it was Troy or somebody, was saying, hey, let's settle this down a little bit. Let's pick our chances, pick our opportunities. And then they started to generate corner kicks. And then ultimately, attacking throw-ins on the side, and that ultimately leads to the goal. Santos subs into the game. I'm trying to remember for who. I know Hopkins came in for Petula, who I called out in my article had a little bit of a rough game.
He came on for Connor Antley in the 74th.
Connor Antley. So he shifted out to that left side. And I think if you ask people, Pedro Santos has gotten the brunt of maybe a little bit. It's hard to have a team when a team's playing well to have many people that are, upset with, but there's been certainly some criticism leveled toward Pedro Santos. I think his values offensively right now outweigh any sort of, defensive defects for him. And I think he's improved that. And I think he showed that again today, where he, at a couple moments where, Montreal gets back on the attack and he manages to shut it down. So
we had a question about him too that we could address right here. RJ Olson says, do you think Pedro Santos transitions into being a super sub coming around the 75th minute mark where he can help make a difference on offense and has fresh legs to see out the game?
I think if you are DC when he was originally signed, that was
the plan.
That was the plan. And it just has never it's never really come together for this team. I think as Connor Antley, if we see Connor Antley continue to perform well, continue to improve, I think that could be a situation. I think he's been probably the biggest, one of the more bigger surprises for the team this year. Because I think, we all knew he was good in USL. Again, it's always, does it translate? Does it move up? And he's certainly not, going to be lead the team the way he did in some of the metrics for he did for Tampa Bay. It's just a different level. But I think he's proven to be really effective. We'll see. I still think, what he brings in certain games, I think it's appropriate if you're playing against a team that, is not very good. I feel like his offensive stats can really sort of bury a team before it really matters, sort of his defensive. And, you still got, now that Connor Antley's developed and he's shown to be really good, maybe he doesn't have to be a 90-minute player. Maybe he can be a 50, 60, 70-minute player, and then he's out once the defensive liabilities start to take hold because he's 35. So I think you can almost reverse it and say he can start, and then, once it starts, his legs start to get a little heavy, you can, bring in Connor Antley and sort of see out the game. So, you agree with that assessment, or you got anything
no, I think it matters. It matters if Mahana Jazzy was a player that could play and was allowed to start games or wanted to start games. That would be a different story. I think he has. I don't think you want to set up your expectations around Connor Antley being a 90-minute every game starter at MLS. it'd be great if he turns into that. But I think that Santos will play a bigger role than that out of necessity until there are more changes to the roster.
Yeah. And we'll see if this happens. I got a couple weeks left in the window.
I don't know. Do you feel like I feel like nothing's coming. I feel like there's zippy.
Yeah, unless there's there has to be something major going out before there's anything else coming in.
Yep.
And I think I wonder, it seems like to me, maybe Yaz kind of explored some other opportunities. Maybe he was encouraged to, and now it's kind of back, and it's like
Martin Rodriguez is proven that he's healthy by getting on the field a couple times, but he's so obviously not part of the plans. Just take whatever you can get for him. Just get him off your books, please.
Again, I think we talk about this team, and I think salary is the big factor here.
We overpaid, perhaps.
Overpaid. You look at Yaz was a marquee signing coming in. You had to pay him to a significant maybe increase in salary to get him to agree to come in. Martin Rodriguez was kind of like an emergency signing all the way back when things were falling off the rails in 2022
from the Turkish second division, I believe.
Yeah. And we probably overpaid for him like drastically. His salary, I'm sure, is extremely high. So I think that's the nature of what DC finds himself in. They're trying to get out of it. I think they've managed it pretty well. But yeah, it's going to be I don't see anything happening. I think the only thing that could potentially happen could be in the summer, once some other windows open up. There's maybe an opportunity to do that, and so we'll see. It's going to be interesting to see what this team has kind of cooking in the summer. I think overall, though, you talk about. I think this beginning of the year was, obviously, I think it's a rebuilding year. I don't think there's any doubt about that. I think what stage of the rebuilding project depended on the early season results, and I think we are maybe ahead of where I thought the team was going to be coming in. I think it is shortened maybe my thought process of when we can actually be a contender by, I would say, a transfer window, with some of the signings that they've made, the players they brought in that have looked well. Matty Patola, little critical of him in this game, but I think overall he's been really good. And he's going to need to be because, well, before we get into that, I think that's the only real headline today. Anything else you want to add about this game or drop or?
Nope. Yeah. I think happy for 3 points.
Yeah.
And that's pretty much it. It wasn't a commanding performance from the perspective of, a bunch of goals, but they were pretty much in control. Montreal didn't threaten, and DC was rewarded with, like you said, made it a little bit more cardiac than maybe we wanted it to be, but we only had a 1 win. So this was the one. We talked about it before the match. Like, this is your best matchup here for 3 points at home. So I'm glad they were able to do it.
Yeah, and it needed to happen. And good teams find ways to win, and I think DC found a way to get a win here. And even if you don't, put it away or blow it away, and I think Montreal at the end of the season, this will look like a better win too. I think they are a team that is got a good organizational front in place. So, little bit of injury news, I think, before we close out DC. Russell Canals, sidelined indefinitely with a health condition. Team is not making it public what that health condition is. I really, really hope it's nothing too serious. Apparently his ankle is fine now, but they've identified something else that's of a concern. Something that is tough to hear, because I think Russell's been a guy who's been here for a while now. I think he's endeared himself to the team. And I think it was sort of thought, once he gets back, then we're going to have a little more depth in central midfield. That's now going to be a little bit harder. And I think you're going to see Hopkins sort of taking up that role. And I don't think he was completely poor in his performance. So, but really hope the best for Russell Canals, and hope everything comes out okay in that, and he can, make the field in 2024. So,
yep. It's certainly not our right to know everything, but it would be great if he does feel in a place to sort of give us a general bit of information, so at least we know how to modulate our well wishes. Like what we shape it, but whatever it is, I hope it's resolves quickly.
Yeah, and Steve Burnbaum still, I think he said he's a little bit behind on his recovery, so still on the bench. And I think also maybe I think they're saying he's behind. He's going to be out for a little bit. I think that's also indicative of the fact that Chris McVeigh and Lucas Bartlett have been excellent this year. guys that maybe we weren't sure about coming into this season.
Which wonderful transition for us. There's another question that's related to that. We can ask from a listener a question. Mario Aguilar says, how much of an impact will Burnbaum and Canals have on our starting lineup whenever they return to play? Should Burnbaum keep the captain's role if he doesn't earn playing time? I wouldn't mind keeping our Saturday lineup for the foreseeable future.
I think there's no harm in leaving him as the captain.
It doesn't really matter.
Yeah, it doesn't. It's certainly. I think a lot of people talk about that as being important and having the captain on the field, and it's certainly a unique situation that he's in. But I think the team was almost kind of prepped for this. I think they've sort of identified other leaders who kind of have that. I think that's why they announced it the way they did.
Why they talked about this big leadership council at the beginning of the season, 5 people. So that's a change.
Yeah, was just trying to, rather than it was understanding that it was going to be a while for Steve. We need to ensure that we have the leadership on the field that we need. And we can move the captain's armband from there. I'm sure when he takes the field, he'll probably take over that captain's armband. Mm-hmm. So I'm sure you will see that. But I don't see a reason why you would look at this and say Steve has to get back out there on the field. McVay and Bartlett have been excellent. I think you're looking maybe at a minutes rotation. I think he'll earn a right to earn that starting role and to see if he can do something that's out of the ordinary. But the team's, I guess, goals against hasn't been fantastic, but I don't think you can look at any real goals and say, changing out center backs is going to improve the situation.
Agree. I don't think it will. I think that this is. I don't know about this lineup on Saturday being the lineup that cannot be changed, but certainly it was an effective one, and I don't think it would be made substantially better by those 2 players returning at this moment, anyway.
Yeah, and I think there've been some. We've started to get the games in there and the advanced stats between Pettila and Canals, and Pettila does things a little bit better considering his age. His progressive passing is a little bit better. He's looking for that a little bit more, and I think as a modern day number 6, having that front passing is extremely important. So I don't see right now. I don't see Pettila losing his job. He hasn't had some moments, but I don't think it's anything. He's still been as advertised and pretty effective in my mind.
It would improve our depth. It would improve the substitutions we're able to make with a lead.
Yeah. But hey, Hopkins is getting time out there. And I think
he is. And that's all I wanted at the beginning of the season. I didn't want it there. I wasn't saying, boy, I hope Jackson Hopkins turns into a 6, but as long as he's playing, that's good. Although he hasn't scored, he has one of the longest goalless droughts. He's never scored so maybe that's just where he finds himself. Maybe you have other skills that we can take advantage of.
I do think it's interesting. It sounded to me, I think when Troy the Same was talking, he is now effectively like a number 8 center midfielder type of player. I think he's moved off the wing. I think he played there a little bit this year in a brief moment, but I think that's probably the position I think he can be most effective. I don't think he has the pace.
His size of those sort of main body attributes, his size is much better than his speed or his evasiveness. So I think you're probably right.
Yeah, and I hope, and I'll be very curious to watch his development because that's kind of where I've felt he could be potentially effective and where I've seen him play the best. So. All right, let's change gears. Let's shift over to
perfectly timed for us doing this right now because the Lacey Santos news just broke on Twitter, finally being confirmed by the Spirit on a 3-year deal. She will be joining the Spirit in the summer, like everyone else pretty much in the entire universe. I just want to get the stats up real quick. So as soon as the season wraps up for Atletico Madrid, she will come back here. The quote here is probably pretty good. I want to make sure I say that. Bringing Lacey to the Spirit is an important step in taking this team forward, says Jonah Heraldez. She is relentless in the attacking third and can create opportunities at will with her passing. We're thrilled to have her here. Wonderful news there on that front. I think that as we were watching this team week in, week out, Trinity Rodman continues to be the focal point from the chance creation. So creating another opportunity, having another vector on the field where there's a severe danger that the defense has to key in on the attack and the final third will be good for the whole team. And it'll also be good for Trinity to maybe focus more on creating her own chances because she's been very much in a facilitator role this season so far.
Yeah.
But great news. I think that this is probably not it. I think this is a huge move forward. I still think I have been talking about the fact that I still think they need another defender. I think they need another center back. But this is a good start. You can't be upset about it.
Yeah, and they do have they have one more international slot, I believe, left if I recall the move. So they've got another, and I think actually, funny enough, another open roster slot as well. So
how about that?
Maybe we'll see them shift that and sign another player. So
a certain Barcelona player you could make space on your roster for that certain player. I think you could figure out the formation realities that are necessary. But let's get into the game this weekend. Unless you have any more Lacey Santos.
Nope. I think I talked about it on the last show.
Yep.
Extremely effective player. Just go look her up in FB Ref and get as excited as I was when I saw those numbers.
We had an Easter game, a 1:00 game on Easter, which I can't decide if I liked it or not. I think I didn't, but it was the second year in a row they've had an Easter match. I think attendance was like 9,000, so not bad. But Utah Royals. This is their second. Obviously, if you've been following NWSL for a while, they were a team, then they weren't a team. Now they are a team. The Spirit had previously not had a very good record against the Royals in any incarnation, so that was not super of note since the team has basically completely turned over. But the lineups were unsurprising, except for the fact that Ashley Hatch was not fit. She was a questionable option when the injury report came out midweek, but she was originally, and we'll get into this in a second. Yeah. She was originally on the roster as a player on the bench, but then we saw her come out on the field in street clothes before the match. So that will be something to watch. Casey Kruger makes the lineup. Obviously, the injury that was feared from her collision last home game was unrealized. No other changes except for Courtney Brown made her first start. I don't have a lot to say about her. And Uli Saar, because of Ashley Hatch being injured, came into the number 9 spot, which is her I think her natural position. Were there anything about the lineups or sort of the pregame stuff that caught your eye?
No, nothing particular. I mean, it looks like, other than Hatch not being there, obviously, which is disappointing. Not too much, not too much to be expected. I will say, we talk about this team not being complete. I think it is promising that, you're now looking at this lineup and before, I think the first game of the year, we were like, this could be a long season. It's healthy now that it's like, okay, it's not going to be as bad as we thought it was going to be. And it does seem like this team at the very least I don't think they're going to thrive. I don't think they're going to be top of the table. We'll see when they get into some tougher.
Are you eager to fuel the growth of soccer in the U.S. while showcasing your passion for the sport? Look no further than Pitch Invaders, the ultimate online apparel destination tailored for the soccer community. Based in Arlington, Virginia, Pitch Invaders offers a dynamic range of casual and athletic gear designed to let you express your love for the game, both on and off the pitch. But Pitch Invaders isn't just about trendy merch, it's a movement. They proudly partner with local soccer clubs and associations, actively contributing to the growth and expansion of the sport across the U.S. Community is at the heart of everything that they do. As a special treat for our podcast listeners, use code VAMOS for an exclusive 15% discount on all purchases at pitchinvadersusa.com. By supporting Pitch Invaders, you're not just showing your love for soccer, you're also backing a brand committed to fostering community and making a difference in the sport. Don't miss out on this opportunity to rep your love for soccer, support the community, and look absolutely fantastic while doing it. Visit pitchinvadersusa.com today and join us in proclaiming that the pitch is for the people.
Matches maybe at home. I think we'll kind of toss the rain game kind of to, well, they were on the road. It was opening day.
They had a red card. They had a penalty in 8 seconds into the game. Another curveball.
Yeah, and a red card that I think these past 2 games it's been comforting, and they were also without Trinity Rodman for that first game as well. It's been comforting to see that the team still looks like they are going to be competitive, and they're not going to be like last place and then trying to make like a miraculous run once reinforcements and permanent coach comes in. So
the first 20 minutes of the game, Utah Royals really pressed the Spirit pretty effectively, caused a number of turnovers. The Royals didn't look like they were necessarily going to score, but the game could not really catch its natural rhythm. The Spirit were unable to possess for long periods of time. In the post game, we asked Andy Sullivan about that, and she basically said that, we knew that press was going to be likely. We understood different kinds of things they might do, and then different things we might want to do with that. And we were told on the field, they're like, you guys figure it out. These are the options, which goes along everything we heard about the coaching staff. Adrian Gonzalez and Jonah Heraldez is very much like, we're going to trust the players in the field. We're going to give them and empower them and make them feel comfortable in different situations and in different positions so that when things happen on the field, they can adjust. They were able to do that 20 minutes in, basically. And maybe not surprisingly, they're like, we have this player named Trinity Rodman on our team, and it would be really good if we gave her the ball a lot on the right wing and saw what she could do. She commented she came into the press conference after it was over and was like, they played very far off of me, much more conservatively than I'm used to. So that was great. That was when we decided that that's what we're going to do. And the right side of the field was just sort of was what was going on. Trinity Rodman was streaking up and down the right-hand side of the field. Croy Bethune acting once again as sort of the pivot player to facilitate the forwards. And also the thing I've been very impressed about her is that she's not hurried. She's very, very patient, and not hurried in the way of like not fast enough for the game, but so much in the fact that she's not pressured into making bad decisions.
Trinity or Croy?
Croy.
Yeah.
Trinity's great. Like Trinity is already like beyond the sort of there's not a lot more things to her game that she has to improve. She's pretty well baked at this point, all in all aspects. But Croy, for her age and for how soon she's into this league, I've been very impressed with that sort of maturity.
Yeah, and one thing to add about Trinity, I think I came into this year kind of wondering whether the style of play we were going to look to implement, or that the coaching staff was looking to implement, was sort of, patient build up, patient possession. I kind of wonder, I was like, does that suit Trinity? Because we've only really seen her for the Spirit play sort of, quick, fast moving, like running at players. Most of her good moments are when she's on a break and running at players. And I think what I've been pleasantly impressed with is I think the change of style has actually turned her into a better player. I think it was always there. I'm not saying it's, turned over that quickly, but I think it's allowed her to show off some more, real dribbling ability to sort of beat players on the dribble, sort of made her a smarter player. I'm very excited to see how, because when I watch her for the U.S. women's national team, I feel like maybe the style of play of sort of the quick moving, she almost like does that and is not as effective. So I'm very curious to see, getting in a more patient build up style, if that's going to translate more to the women's national team and make her better for that team. She can still move very quickly. She's still very quick on the ball, but just, it seems like it's more improved her. And also, it's made her, she's now a little bit more of a focal point, where before I think it was kind of shared between Hatch, Sanchez, and Trinity Rodman. This team is really kind of built around her in a lot of ways. So,
yeah, there's a lot more sort of passing triangles in their own half, breaking that pressure. To your point, and I don't think they're fully there yet. I don't think all the players are super suited for that. They're still sort of turning over some of the players in this roster. I think they're undeniably there's still some moves to be made, but they drafted with that in mind, and all the players that they have drafted have been perfect fits for that sort of philosophy. So that is cool. That's once again maybe the GM has some ideas that are not bad. They have all those players have been extremely competent and comfortable making those decisions on the field. So I think we're going to call that out. The first sort of opportunity, Ule Sar, after about 12 minutes in, 15 minutes in, the game tilted. The Spirit, if you look at the XG race, it went into overdrive at that point for the rest of the half. Trinity Rodman finds Ule Sar from about 4 feet, but she misses on that opportunity. I'm seeing how many big chances missed. 2 big chances missed for Sar. I think that's one of them. 5 touches in the opponent's box. Most fouled player on the field. So the interesting thing about her is she was playing with her back to goal a lot. And I'm not certain that that's really her specialty. She has the size for it, but she does not appear to have the physicality or the strength to sort of box out physical defenders. Katie Del Favo was just kicking the hell out of her ankles for the entire game, and she was getting very frustrated. And Gonzalez was yelling on the field, trying to tell her that she's got to push further up and change and make that line of confrontation closer to the 18, maybe inside of it, just so that the other players can sort of play off of those opportunities that are generated. But that was the first opportunity for them. But then 2 minutes later, Corey Bethune earned a penalty. Interesting to note, Trinity Rodman was on a rush in this play. She had possibly a chance to make her own shot. She plays in. I was thinking she was going to shoot and probably should have. She plays in Croy, who's in the middle of the six. She gets the leg swept in like the most obvious penalty in the universe. It took how long did it take? Over 10 minutes in VAR to decide whether or not that was a penalty. After Tara McKeown, so that we were laughing. Tara McKeown had the ball where like everyone's like, no one thinks she's taking it, right? And she obviously handed it off to Andy, but it was even within that. After they handed it off, they had to reset and continue to look at it. So they're just sitting there waiting. Andy is just waiting to take this penalty. Luckily, she's still able to convert it. She slots it on the right past the diving keeper. It was the first non-Ashley Hatch penalty taken since October 2022. So that's a rare chance for her. But she said that her and 3 other players practice penalties every day after training. So they're always ready to go. So that's cool. She was able to convert there. It was a really good penalty. But I do think it's interesting to note that the penalty happened. I would an earlier incarnation of Rodman, maybe a year ago or 2 years ago, would have taken that shot. Mm-hmm. Would it have gone in? Maybe not. But she definitely probably would have taken it. But Croy was in a spot. She played her in, drew the penalty, worked out.
Yeah. And again, the VAR reviews trended on ridiculous, I think, in this game. I think there was a red card review in this game, right? I know there was one in DC, so I'm trying to make sure I'm not.
Hal Hirschfeld was fouled in what appeared to be in real time, not that bad of a foul, but upon, a lot of people, I should do this. I don't do this. A lot of people have the stream up in the press box so they can see the highlights. I don't do that.
Choking that internet connection out there.
Choking it big time because there's like 10 people with HD streams. But upon that, you could see that it looked pretty nailed on red card, but they have another long review. A yellow card is awarded instead of a red card. And then I think there were 13 minutes of added time in the first half.
Yeah.
Which is ridiculous. But also, only 9 minutes after that first goal, Rodman once again plays the provider, crosses the ball into Sarr. Sarr wins a contested header, cuts it across goal, scores the second goal. It was commented after the fact. Adrian Gonzalez was like, "Yeah, she misses the easy ones and makes the hard ones, so that's good for her, I guess." And then Sarr said, "Yeah, I do that sometimes. That it do be like that sometimes." And also, Gabby Carl had to serve as translator for that, which was interesting. We were making a joke that that hopefully Gabby gets a secondary stipend for having to do a little admin work, additionally to being a right back. But yeah, at the end of the half, eventually, whenever it eventually ended, the Spirit were looking pretty dominant. I went and visited a friend at halftime in the stands. Like, I think you'll probably see more goals. They did, but not necessarily the ones they wanted.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. 13 minutes of stoppage time, and Utah was heavily, again, if you're looking at the XG chart again, was way up. The Gonzalez said, like, we have been preparing to play 90 minutes, and we should start maybe preparing to play 100 minutes because this is seeming to happen every week. So maybe that's something we just need to start practicing for.
Yeah. Second half, I think, wasn't. I mean, I think you talk about domination, dominant first half. I think we all kind of thought, okay, get the third goal. I think the team started pushing for it. I felt like they were very much like in control. And then I think the classic, you give the team, you kind of give a little bit of a crack of the door and the team suddenly is like, oh man, hey, we can go out and do this. And they start to push. Unfortunate goal to give up. I think it was.
Yeah, Ali Settner, who I believe scored the previous week, scores off a deflection. Aubrey onside, it really wasn't much she could do about it. But to your point, after the fact, the belief was there. Kruger had already hit the post right before that, so it was uneven. I think if the Royals are not built all the way, I think they need a little bit more help in the midfield from an attacking perspective. They're pretty strong defensively, despite giving up those 2 goals. So they're lucky in that point. But Aubrey Kingsbury really does save the day with a double save in the 75th, 76th minute from both inside the 6. Easily could have gone the other way there. You would not have felt, after the way the second half was going, you would not have felt very hard done by a draw there. They took the foot off the gas, and it was sort of trending that direction. So you easily could have seen that. But you got to be happy with the 3 again. Just like for DC United, not a perfect performance, but against a team you are better than on paper. all you had to do was win by one, and they and they made that happen.
And I do think at that point, I mean, I think the game started to trend towards Utah. They were pressuring, they were on the ball. I think that double save served as an important. I think it kind of dropped the shoulders a little bit of Utah. It was like, oh man, we can't even score on this, and I think that's an important save for Kingsbury in the sense that I think it finally the game started to sort of wrestle into sort of a little bit of an uneven. Of course, the Spirit then sort of sat back a little bit. Do we want to make much of the sub gap?
Oh yeah, let's please talk about that. I'm sorry, I forgot to mention that. So again, we mentioned that Ashley Hatch was supposed to, and by the way, this is not known by a lot of people because obviously it wasn't talked about. I think on the broadcast, people in the stadium were like, "What?" So Ashley Hatch was on our roster, was not on the graphic for social media. She was replaced by Chloe Ricketts. Unfortunately, they did not update the official roster for the referees and the fourth official. So when Chloe Ricketts was brought on for Courtney Brown in like the 75th minute, 76th minute, very quickly after, the Utah Royals, I don't know if it was the Royals coaching staff that caught it or if it was the fourth official, but briefly it was noticed.
Yeah, and
did you see it?
Yeah, I mean, I saw it where she went on the field. I think everybody was confused, and I kind of had oh man, I wonder. We should be used to this. We've seen it before at Audi Field with Ben Olsen bringing on Russell Canals, and
that was immediately discussed in the press box. We're like, oh, only here apparently. This is where this happens.
But unfortunately, I would say, in the DC situation, I think DC were down at the time. The game was very clearly over at that point. So really,
right. This is a little different.
To give you some history, I think there was the coach for New York was really like upset about it. And Ben goes, "Well, do you want us to forfeit?" Well, then fortunately, in this case, it was caught before play could be resumed. So there wasn't a scenario where a unrostered player that could have been, really Utah would have had a case where they could have said, "Hey, you guys fielded a player who wasn't on the roster. That should be a forfeitable offense, regardless of what impact it had." So I think fortunately in that case it was caught before the play resumed.
Also, thankfully, Courtney Brown, who was substituted off, did not make a big show of taking her shoes off and getting comfortable in that time. Like, she just sat down and they're like, "Get up, you're playing again." And she's like, "Excuse me, what?" If you want to check her comments on how that went, join our Patreon. I dumped the post-game audio feed and she talked about that in there. But yeah, no, Chloe Ricketts was that did not go over well with her. Obviously, that was her first appearance for the year. She was excited to play. She stayed on the bench, which I thought was not allowed. She should have had to leave the field. She did not. But yeah, so hopefully she gets on the field in a legal way somewhat soon. But I did want to talk about Courtney Brown. I mean, we talked about this game. We're 2-1. They won. I want to highlight some players. Courtney Brown had her first start. The stats do not really tell the story of how effective she was on the wing. She was a lot better, to my mind, that she performed better from the start than players in previous matches that played that position. I'm trying to remember quickly who might have started on that side. Give me a second. No, the previous game. Anyway, she was good. She tracked back well. She took on players. Again, another first year player that fits exactly into the style. Brittany Ratcliffe also played pretty well in a cameo at the end. We just talked about Lacey Santos. They're still trying to figure out what does that third forward look like. What do we do when Trinity will play when she's not playing? Ashley will play when she's not playing. What else are we going to do? And still, I don't want to see this team without Trinity on the field. I still think that's a gnarly concept to think about. But as far as a young player goes, really, really excited at how she did. Hal Hirschfeld had a bit more of a quiet game, but I think that this was just the ball was not hanging out in the midfield as much. There were not a lot of opportunities to win the ball for her, just the way that Utah Royals were playing. Anna Butel has played a lot better this year. She's a nailed on every game starter at this point. Last year she was sort of being worked in. She's very competent, very calm with the ball. Happy to see her perform well. And again, I'll talk about Croy again. Just a player that I don't think she's making anyone forget about Ashley Sanchez yet, but she is certainly does not look lost out there. Is very, very calm with the ball. I'd love to see her take some more opportunities herself. She's very much focused on playing other players, and that's fine because it's working. but I think that she has a really amazing skill set. I want to see her be aggressive as well as we move forward in the season. The next game will be on Friday against, not this Friday, but the following Friday. We've obviously got an international break.
Yes.
So we've got some She Believes Cups matches to maybe watch with Casey Kruger, Trinity Rodman, and Gabby Carl all in the mix. But the next NWSL game played will be next Friday, the 12th, on a Friday night. So Amazon Prime, your first opportunity to watch. I think it'll be your first opportunity to watch the Spirit in actually good HD quality. So, check that out.
I will say, I mean, again, I was kind of watching on my phone. The quality on Monument Sports seemed to be a little bit more improved than we got out of the first week. So, also, I think the camera angle, whatever the camera angle they're trying to use at I have to watch the Seattle game on like Amazon Prime to see if it's any better. But like I think the camera angle did not do any favors there. So good to see that. All right, folks. I think that's going to do it for this episode of RFK Refugees. Again, thank you guys so much. We're going to have I think we're still working through the pre-match content,
and we may have a player interview later this week for the Spirit.
Yeah, player interview for the Spirit. We're going to have obviously our preview pieces coming up for DC. We get a little break from Spirit previews. Also, other content coming your way, so definitely check it. Definitely look forward to it. We'll catch you guys next week if we don't hear from you. Vamos.
Thank you for listening to RFK Refugees Podcast. Make sure you rate and review the show wherever you download podcasts. If you want to support the show, consider joining our Patreon or subscribing to our channel on Twitch. Lastly, make sure you're following us on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, Threads, YouTube, Twitch, Goals.tv, Friendster, MySpace, and Tumblr. Some of those are even real. Vamos.